Unlike my sister, I actually built something real. My brother Derek said this to 35 relatives. It was our grandmother's 85th birthday dinner. He said it while holding up his phone, showing the wire transfer confirmation. $2 million from an anonymous investment fund called Pacific Ridge Capital. He said it while I sat 3 seats away from him, eating my Caesar salad, saying absolutely nothing. He said it while our parents beamed at him like he'd just cured cancer. He didn't know I was Pacific Ridge Capital. He didn't know that the $2 million came from my personal accounts. He didn't know that I now owned 51% of our father's company. But to understand why I was sitting there in silence, you need context. You need to know about the 3 years before that dinner. You need to know about the business he stole, the parents who let him, and the invisible daughter who decided to stop being invisible. I grew up as the forgettable Cho. Eric was the golden son from the moment he was born. I was 4 years old when my parents brought him home from the hospital. I remember standing in the doorway of the nursery, watching my mother coo at this tiny creature in the blue blanket. "This is your baby brother," she said without looking at me. "He's going to do great things someday." No one ever said that about me. Derek was the one with the football scholarship to a Division I school. Derek was the one who got the brand new car for his 16th birthday. I got a used bicycle. Derek was the one whose graduation party had 100 guests. A catered dinner. My graduation party was pizza in the living room. My parents kept checking their watches. "Derek has a game tomorrow," Dad said, halfway through my cake. "We should probably get to bed early." I was 17 years old, valedictorian of my high school class, and my parents left my graduation party early for Derek's baseball game. I remember watching the car pull out of the driveway. My hands were still sticky with cake frosting. I'd been about to blow out the candles. Derek was already in the car, honking the horn. "Hurry up," he yelled. "I can't be late." He caught my eye through the window, and he smiled, not a warm smile, a smile that said, "I win." Again, then they were gone. I stood in the living room alone, 17 candles still burning on a cake no one would eat. But I was young. I still believed that if I just achieved enough, they would finally see me. I went to college on a scholarship I earned myself. Engineering, mechanical engineering, to be specific. I wanted to build things, create things, make something real with my own hands. Derek went to the same university on a football scholarship. His tuition was covered. His apartment was covered. His meal plan was covered. I worked 2 jobs to pay for my textbooks. My parents said they couldn't afford to help me, but they could afford to send Derek spending money every month. $200, regular as clockwork. "He needs it for essentials," Mom said when I asked. "You understand, right? You've always been so good at managing on your own." Derek was standing right behind her when she said it. He mouthed 3 words at me over her shoulder. "Sucks to be you." Then he laughed and walked away. That's Derek, always twisting the knife when no one else was looking, always making sure I knew exactly where I stood. I graduated summa cum laude. Dean's List every single semester. 3 job offers before I even walked across the stage. But I turned them all down because our father owned a manufacturing company, and I wanted to be part of the family business. I wanted to prove that I belong. Cho Precision Manufacturing, precision metal parts for medical devices. Not glamorous, but profitable. My father built it from nothing over 30 years. Started in a garage with a single lathe, grew it into a company with 40 employees. $3 million in annual revenue. When I graduated with my engineering degree, I asked to work there. I had ideas. So many ideas. I'd studied manufacturing processes, supply chain optimization, quality control systems. I could see ways to improve efficiency, reduce waste, increase margins. I could see the future of the company, and it was bright. "We need you in the office," Dad said when I pitched my vision. Answering phones, managing invoices, filing paperwork. Dad, I have an engineering degree. I could work on the production floor. The production floor isn't a place for a young woman. You'll be more comfortable in the office. I don't want to be comfortable. I want to contribute. You will contribute. By supporting the team, that's what daughters do. I had a degree in mechanical engineering. Dean's List every semester. 3 job offers from companies that wanted my brain. And my father wanted me to answer phones. But I took the job because I thought I could prove myself. I thought eventually they would see my value. I thought if I just worked hard enough, they would finally see me. They would finally understand what I was capable of. That's the lie we tell ourselves, isn't it? If I just do enough, they'll love me the way I deserve. They never do. I worked in that office for 3 years. 3 years of answering phones, filing invoices, watching opportunities pass me by. I'd arrive at 7 in the morning and leave at 7 at night. Sometimes later. Sometimes I was the last one to lock up. I learned the business inside and out. Memorized every client, every vendor, every process, every machine on the production floor. I could recite our top 20 customers by revenue and by margin. I knew which vendors were reliable and which ones cut corners. I knew which machines needed maintenance before they broke down. I knew everything about this company that my father had built. And he never asked me a single question about any of it. I started noticing problems. Small inefficiencies that were costing us money. Little things that added up to big things over time. A tooling setup that was wasting 15% of our raw materials. I calculated it myself. $42,000 a year in pure waste. A scheduling system that caused bottlenecks on the production floor. Machines sitting idle while other machines were overloaded. $60,000 in lost productivity. A quality control process that caught defects too late. After we'd already wasted labor and resources, $80,000 in rework and scrap. A shipping system that was costing us twice what it should. Vendor contracts that hadn't been renegotiated in 5 years. Insurance policies that overlapped and duplicated. Altogether, I identified over $400,000 in annual savings. 0.5 percentage point on our margins. The difference between a good year and a great year. I wrote reports. Detailed reports. Comprehensive reports with data and charts. Specific recommendations. 12 of them over 2 years. Each one meticulously researched. Each one professionally formatted. Each one left on my father's desk with a note asking for his feedback. He never mentioned them. Not once. I waited days. Weeks? Nothing. I asked him directly once, "Did you get a chance to look at that report I left you? The one about the tooling optimization?" He looked up from his computer like he didn't know what I was talking about. "What report?" "The one I left on your desk. About the tooling setup." "Oh, that. I'll get to it." He never did. Years later, after everything happened, I was cleaning out his old office. Reorganizing. Making space for new systems. And I found them, all 12 reports, in the bottom drawer of his filing cabinet, unread, still stapled together, page pristine. Not a single mark, not a single note. He hadn't even flipped through them. 3 years of work, 3 years of ideas, 3 years of solutions, thrown in a drawer like junk mail. But that wasn't the worst part. On top of the stack, there was a sticky note. Derek's handwriting. 2 words. Jessica's garbage. He'd seen them. He'd read my name on the cover, and he'd labeled them garbage without even opening them. Then convinced Dad to ignore them too. My hands started shaking. I couldn't make my fingers close around the pages. I sat on the floor of that office, cold tile pressing through my skirt, and I cried until my throat was raw. Not because of the waste, not because of the lost opportunities, because of what it meant. He hadn't just ignored my reports because they were bad. He'd actively worked to bury them, to make sure I stayed invisible. Derek joined the company 2 years after I did. He'd washed out of football after a knee injury sophomore year. Switched to a business degree. Graduated with a 2, 3 gigapascals, and no job offers. But none of that mattered. Because he was the son. He went straight into management. Assistant to our father. Learning the business from the top down. No engineering knowledge. No manufacturing experience. No idea what a tolerance was or why it mattered. Just Dad's blind faith in his brilliant son. Derek will take over someday, Mom told me over coffee one Sunday. We were sitting in my tiny apartment, the one I could barely afford on my insulting salary. You understand, right? It's a family business. It should go to the son. I'm family too, I said. Of course you are, honey. She patted my hand like I was a child. And you'll always have a place here, supporting your brother. What if I don't want to support him? What if I want to lead? Mom laughed. Actually laughed like I'd told a joke. Oh, sweetheart. You're so serious sometimes. Just focus on finding a nice husband. That's what really matters. I was 26 years old. I had an engineering degree. I had a better understanding of our business than Derek ever would. And my mother's dream for me was to find a nice husband. I stayed anyway. Stupid, stubborn, hopeful, I found ways to contribute despite my father's restrictions. Started staying late, walking the production floor after everyone left, talking to the machinists, the quality control techs, the maintenance crew, learning what they knew, seeing what they saw. I identified the tooling problem that had been wasting our materials for years, designed a solution, tested it with a friendly machinist named Gerald. He thought I was crazy but was willing to try. It worked. Saved the company $400,000 in my first year. $400,000. I documented everything, wrote a formal report, presented it to my father with data, with projections, with proof. He looked at the numbers, nodded, said, "Good work." Then he turned to Derek. "See what happens when the team works together. That's leadership, son. Inspiring your people." Derek hadn't inspired anyone. Derek didn't even know about the project until I presented it. But Dad gave him the credit anyway. Derek caught my eye across the conference table, and he winked. Actually winked like we were sharing a joke. Like stealing my work was a game between us. "Great job, sis," he said later in the hallway. "Really appreciate you making me look good. You know I didn't do that for you." "Of course you did." He leaned closer. His breath smelled like coffee and entitlement. "That's what you're here for, to make me look good. When I'm running this place, maybe I'll throw you a bone. A nice corner office, a better title. If you behave." I stared at him. "And if I don't behave?" He smiled. That same smile from the car window when he was 16. "Then I'll fire you. First day, no severance, and I'll tell everyone you were stealing from the company. Who do you think they'll believe? The CEO's son? Or the secretary who got too ambitious?" He patted my shoulder. "Stay in your lane, Jessica. It's safer there." When the annual bonus came that year, Derek got $50,000. I got a card that said, "Thanks for being a team player. No bonus, no raise." Just words on paper. Worthless words. I cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. Sat on the toilet with my knees drawn up, my whole body shaking, mascara running down my face in black rivers. I could hear someone come in and leave. Come in and leave again. I couldn't stop. The sobs kept coming like waves, each one pulling something out of me that I'd never get back. When I finally looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize myself. Red eyes, blotchy skin, a woman who'd given everything and received nothing. I washed my face with cold water until my hands went numb, fixed my makeup with fingers that wouldn't stop trembling, went back to my desk. Derek walked past 10 minutes later, saw my red eyes, smiled. "Allergies?" he asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Spring's brutal this year." Then he laughed and kept walking. He knew exactly what he'd done, and he loved it. That's when something broke in me. Not my hope, something harder. Something that had been holding me back. The part of me that still believed my family would ever see me clearly. I should have left then. Should have taken one of those job offers I'd turned down years ago. Should have walked away and never looked back. But I was young, and I still believed in family. Still believed that if I just worked harder, they would finally see me. Still believed in a lie that was never going to come true. At 29, I met someone who changed everything. Not a man. My mother would have been disappointed. A woman named Patricia Chen, who ran a startup incubator downtown. I met her at a networking event I almost didn't attend, a manufacturing innovation conference at a hotel near the airport. I wasn't supposed to go. Dad said it was a waste of time. What are you going to learn? You answer phones. But I went anyway. Paid for the ticket myself. Told my father I had a dentist appointment. Patricia was giving the keynote speech. Something about the future of predictive maintenance, how sensors and machine learning were going to revolutionize manufacturing, how the companies that adapted would thrive and the ones that didn't would die. I listened like my life depended on it, because it did. I'd been tinkering with something in my spare time, a side project I'd never told anyone about. Not my parents, not my brother, not anyone at the company. A device that solved a problem I'd noticed on our factory floor. Nothing fancy, just a sensor system that could predict machine failures before they happened. It analyzed vibrations, temperatures, electrical patterns. It learned what normal looked like for each machine. And it flagged anomalies before they became breakdowns. I'd built a prototype in my garage. Spent 2 years on it. Weekends, late nights, every spare moment. Taught myself to code so I could write the software. Taught myself electronics so I could build the hardware. Taught myself statistics so I could create the algorithms. I brought the prototype to the conference, hidden in my bag like contraband. After Patricia's speech, I waited in line to talk to her. 45 minutes, my heart pounding the whole time. When I finally reached her, I didn't know what to say. I have something to show you, I blurted out. If you have 5 minutes, I know you're busy. I'm sorry. She looked at me. Really looked the way no one in my family ever did. Show me, she said. I pulled out the prototype, explained how it worked. Showed her the data I'd collected from tests in my garage. She stared at it for a full minute. Didn't say anything, just stared. I started sweating. This was a mistake. I was wasting her time. She probably thought I was an idiot. This could be worth millions, she finally said. I blinked. Excuse me? This. What you built. Do you understand what you have here? It's just a hobby project. I'm sure someone else has done this. No one has done it this elegantly. She handed me a business card. Come to my office Monday. I want to hear your pitch. I don't have a pitch. I don't have anything. I just have this thing I built. Then we'll figure out the pitch together. Monday, 9 a.m. Don't be late. She walked away before I could argue. I pitched. Terribly at first. Stammering and sweating. Apologizing for things I didn't need to apologize for. But Patricia was patient. She asked questions. Pushed back on my assumptions. Made me defend my ideas. By the end of 2 hours, I had something resembling a business plan. Patricia offered me a spot in her incubator program. Free office space for 6 months. Mentorship from experienced entrepreneurs. Access to a network of angel investors. All I had to do was commit. All I had to do was leave everything I knew and jump into the unknown. I have a job, I told her. At my family's company? Are they paying you what you're worth? No. Are they using your engineering skills? Not really. Are they ever going to promote you? I was quiet for a long time. You know the answer, Patricia said gently. The question is whether you're brave enough to accept it. I told my parents that weekend. Drove to their house on Sunday afternoon. Sat them down in the living room. Explained the opportunity. Showed them the prototype. explained what Patricia had said, what the incubator offered, what my future could look like, asked for their blessing. I don't know why I asked. I didn't need their permission. But some part of me still wanted it, still wanted them to see me, still wanted them to be proud. You're abandoning us, Dad said. His face was red. His hands were clenched. After everything we've done for you, I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm starting my own company. I could still consult for the business, help with the transition. What transition? You answer phones. There's nothing to transition. That was Derek. He'd been listening from the doorway, leaning against the frame with his arms crossed, that smirk on his face. You answer phones and file invoices? A temp could replace you tomorrow. Then you won't miss me. That's not the point. Dad stood up. The point is loyalty. The point is family. You don't just walk away because some stranger makes promises. I'm not walking away from family. I'm starting my own business. Is it? Because it looks like betrayal to me. Mom put her hand on my arm. Gentle. Concerned. Honey, this startup thing, it's risky. Why don't you stay where it's safe, where you're needed? I'm not needed here. Derek just said a temp could replace me. That's not what he meant. That's exactly what he meant. He's right. I'm not needed here. I never was. So I'm going somewhere I am needed. I left the next week. Gave 2 weeks' notice. My father didn't speak to me for both of them. My mother cried and asked if there was anything she could do to change my mind. Derek threw a going-away party. For himself, on my last day. Catered lunch in the conference room. Cake that said new leadership era. He invited the whole company except me. When I walked past the conference room, he raised a champagne glass. To the future, he announced. Free of dead weight. Everyone laughed. Some of them glanced at me. Embarrassed. Pitying. But none of them said anything. After the party, he cornered me in the parking lot. You're going to fail, he said, getting close. So close, I could smell the champagne on his breath. Startups fail all the time, especially ones run by glorified secretaries. He pulled something from his pocket. A photo. Our family Christmas card from 3 years ago. He'd cut me out of it. Literally cut me out with scissors. This is what you'll be to us when you're gone, he said. Nothing. A hole where a person used to be. We'll tell people you had a breakdown. Couldn't handle the pressure. By next year, no one will even remember you worked here. He dropped the mutilated photo at my feet. Good luck with your little project. You're going to need it. I watched him walk back inside, whistling, happy, completely certain he'd won. I picked up the photo, looked at the hole where my face used to be, and I made a promise. Someday, he would know exactly how it felt to be erased. I moved into a tiny studio apartment near the incubator. 400 square feet. No dishwasher. No laundry. Roaches in the walls that came out at night. But it was mine. I was finally on my own. I started building my company with $3,000. That's what I'd saved over 7 years of underpaid work. $3,000. That's what 7 years of loyalty was worth. The first year was brutal. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I worked 14-hour days, 7 days a week. I slept on a futon in the corner of the incubator office. Couldn't afford to waste time commuting. I ate ramen for dinner most nights. Sometimes lunch, too. Sometimes I forgot to eat at all. My hair started falling out from stress. I'd find clumps of it on my pillow every morning. Long black strands on the shower drain. In my brush, on my keyboard, I started wearing it in a ponytail, so no one would notice how thin it was getting. My hands shook when I tried to sleep. I'd lie awake at 3 a.m., staring at the water stain on the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster, listening to the roaches skitter in the walls, wondering if Derek was right, wondering if I was going to fail. I had panic attacks in the bathroom at 2 in the morning. Heart pounding so hard I thought I was dying. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Just sat on the cold tile floor with my back against the wall, waiting for it to pass. One night, I almost called my mother. Had the phone in my hand. Finga hoang owahan name. Then I remembered what she'd said. Just focus on finding a nice husband. That's what really matters. I put the phone down, went back to my computer, kept working, because the alternative was going back, and I would rather die on that cold bathroom floor than go back. I learned to code because I couldn't afford to hire developers. Sat in front of YouTube tutorials until 3 a.m. Taught myself Python, then JavaScript, then cloud architecture. My first code was terrible. Embarrassingly bad, but it worked. And that's all that mattered. I learned to sell because I couldn't afford a sales team. Made cold calls until my voice gave out. Got rejected 100 times. 1,000 times. People hung up on me, laughed at me, told me my product was worthless, told me I was wasting their time. I cried after every 10th rejection. Then I made the 11th call. I learned to fail because that's what startups do before they succeed. My first product launch was a disaster. I'd spent 6 months building what I thought was perfect. The perfect sensor, the perfect algorithm, the perfect solution. I launched 3 customers. 3. After 6 months of work, 2 of them asked for refunds within the first week. The third one ghosted me. I sat in my tiny apartment that night and stared at the ceiling, wondering if Derek was right, wondering if I was going to fail, wondering if I should just give up and find a normal job. Patricia found me the next morning, still in yesterday's clothes, still staring at nothing. "Get up," she said. "I can't." "Get up anyway." She handed me a coffee. Every successful founder has a story about wanting to quit. You know what separates them from the ones who actually failed? What? They didn't quit. I didn't quit. I went back to the customers who'd rejected me, asked them why. What was wrong with the product? What would make them buy it? Most of them didn't respond, but some did, and their feedback was brutal. Honest, essential. I rebuilt everything, changed the hardware, rewrote the software, simplified the interface, cut the price in half, added a money-back guarantee. My second product launch barely broke even. 23 customers, enough to pay the bills. Not enough to grow. I iterated again, improved, listened to more feedback, fixed bugs, added features, changed the pricing model from one-time purchase to monthly subscription. That was the breakthrough. My third product launch started getting traction. Real traction. Companies wanted the sensor system. They wanted to predict failures before they happened. They wanted to save money on maintenance and downtime. Word started spreading. One customer told 2 friends. Those friends told their colleagues. Those colleagues told their industry contacts. One customer turned into 5. 5 turned into 20. 20 turned into 50. 50 turned into 100. I hired my first employee at month 14, a software engineer named Marcus who believed in what we were building. He took a 50% pay cut to join. That's how much he believed. I hired my second employee at month 16, a sales rep named Sandra who had more energy than anyone I'd ever met. By year 2, I had 12 employees and $500,000 in annual revenue. By year 3, I had 40 employees and $3 million in revenue. We moved into a real office with actual desks and chairs and a coffee machine that worked. We had health insurance. We had a 400 plan. We were profitable, growing, real. I was 32 years old. And for the first time in my life, I was visible. Not to my family. I hadn't spoken to them in 2 years. Not since I'd walked out of the office for the last time. Not since Derek had told me I would fail. They hadn't called either. No happy birthday. My 31st birthday came and went with no card, no call, no text. No Merry Christmas. I spent Christmas Day eating Chinese takeout alone in my apartment, watching old movies, pretending I wasn't thinking about the empty chair at the family table. No Happy New Year. No Thanksgiving. No, how are you? Complete silence. 2 years of nothing. Not even a message when I was featured in the local business journal. Not even a note when I won the Regional Entrepreneur Award. Not even a question when my name started appearing in industry publications. I Googled them sometimes, late at night when I couldn't sleep, wondering what they were doing, wondering if they ever wondered about me. They posted on social media like I'd never existed. Family dinners without an empty seat. Holiday photos without a missing face. Stories that skipped from Derek's childhood to Derek's business achievements. No mention of a daughter. No mention of a sister. I was dead to them. Or worse, I had simply ceased to exist. Like I'd been erased from the family photo, retouched out of the group picture, a blank space where a daughter used to be. But to the business world, to investors, to the industry, I was someone. I was on panels. I was giving keynote speeches. I was being interviewed for podcasts and publications. I was invited to conferences where people wanted to hear my story. The woman who'd built a predictive maintenance empire from a garage. The engineer who'd taught herself to code and sell and lead. The founder who'd turned rejection into revenue. That woman was visible. That woman was respected. That woman was someone. My company was called Prescient Systems. We'd just closed a Series B round of funding, $20 million, from 3 of the most respected venture capital firms in the country. I owned 53% of the company. More money than I'd ever imagined. More validation than my family had given me in my entire life. Forbes wrote an article about us, the woman revolutionizing predictive maintenance. There was a photo of me on the factory floor, surrounded by sensors and machines. I looked confident. I looked successful. I looked like someone. A week after the article came out, Derek called. I almost didn't answer. His name on my phone felt like a ghost from another life. But curiosity won. Hey, sis. Long time. 3 years, I said. Yeah, well, family stuff. You know how it is. I didn't, actually, because my family had stopped including me in family stuff 3 years ago. What do you want, Derek? He sighed, that dramatic put-upon sigh he'd been doing since childhood. I need help. The company. Dad's company. It's in trouble. I waited. We lost some contracts. Made some bad bets on new equipment. The numbers aren't looking good. I need an investor. What kind of trouble exactly? We're hemorrhaging cash. Revenue's down 30%. We might have to lay off half the workforce. How did that happen? It's complicated. Market conditions, competition, things outside our control. I knew what that meant. It meant Derek had made stupid decisions and didn't want to admit it. How much do you need? 2 million should do it. Cover the gaps. Stabilize operations. Give us runway to recover. 2 million. The same amount my Series B investors had debated for months. The same amount that represented a year of my company's growth. Derek wanted it handed over because he'd made bad bets. Why are you calling me? I asked. You're in tech now, right? Investors. Maybe you could make some introductions. He didn't know about Prescient Systems. Didn't know about the 20 million in funding. Didn't know about the Forbes article. Didn't know anything about my life because he'd never bothered to ask. Never once in 3 years had he Googled my name. Never once had he wondered if his sister had succeeded or failed. He just assumed I'd failed. Of course he did. That's what he expected. That's what he wanted. I'll see what I can do, I said. I hung up. I sat in my corner office. 20th floor of a building I could actually afford now. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A view of the city. My name on the door. My company's logo on the wall. Everything I'd built. Everything I'd earned. Everything they'd said I would never have. I thought about everything my family had done to me. About the graduation party they cut short. About the bicycle while Derek got a car. About the office job while Derek got management. About the card while Derek got $50,000. About the silence. 2 years of silence. 2 years of being erased. 2 years of watching them live their lives like I had never been born. I should have been angry. And I was, at first, that old familiar rage rising up. The anger that had fueled me through those first brutal years. The anger that had pushed me through every rejection, every failure, every sleepless night. But then the anger gave way to something else. Something colder. Something more strategic. Something that felt less like fire and more like ice. I realized something in that moment. Derek had called me because he needed help, not because he cared about me. Not because he'd realized he was wrong. Not because he missed me. He called because the company was failing and he'd exhausted every other option. I was his last resort. The sister he dismissed. The one who answered phones. The one who would never build anything real. He still didn't know what I'd built. Still didn't know who I'd become. And that's when the idea came to me. Not revenge, exactly. Revenge implies destruction. I didn't want to destroy my father's company. Despite everything, I still loved that company. I'd spent years there. I'd learned every corner of it. I'd written 12 reports trying to save it. I didn't want it to die, but I wanted something else. Something better. Something that would make them see justice. I created a shell company. Pacific Ridge Capital. Registered it through a law firm in Seattle. They specialized in anonymous investments. Had my CFO set up the paperwork so that nothing traced back to me. Corporate layers within corporate layers. LLCs owning LLCs. A maze that would take months to unravel. Then I had Pacific Ridge reach out to Derek. The email was simple. Professional. Anonymous. We've reviewed your company's financials and see potential. We'd like to discuss a $2 million investment. Please contact our office to schedule a meeting. Derek called within the hour. I listened to the conversation through my lawyer. He was eager, desperate, practically begging. He didn't ask who was behind the fund, didn't do any due diligence, didn't request references or track records, didn't even Google the company name, just saw $2 million and said yes. The terms we offered were aggressive. 51% equity for the investment, 2 board seats for the fund, veto power over all major decisions, full access to financial records. Any real businessman would have negotiated, would have pushed back, would have consulted with lawyers and accountants and advisors. Derek signed within a week, didn't even read the contract properly, just saw the number at the bottom. Signed on the dotted line. He was so excited about the money. He didn't realize he'd just handed control to someone else. To me. He'd sold our father's legacy to the sister he'd called worthless. The sister who answered phones. The sister who was so insignificant that a temp could replace her. That sister now owned the majority stake. I let him celebrate. Let him tell our parents. Let him post on social media about his amazing business acumen. Let him plan the big announcement at Grandma's 85th birthday party. I saved the company, he told everyone who would listen. Found an investor who believed in me. $2 million. The biggest deal of my life. Dad called him a hero. Mom cried with pride. The whole family treated him like a conquering warrior returning from battle. Meanwhile, I was sitting on 51% of our father's business. The business he told me I could never lead. The company Derek had said I was too insignificant to matter to. Mine now, every share, every vote, every decision. I just had to wait for the right moment to reveal it. Grandma's 85th birthday party was at a nice restaurant downtown. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, private room in the back. 35 people. All the Chos and their spouses and their children and their children's children. 3 generations of family. All celebrating the matriarch, all pretending to be happy to see each other. I arrived late on purpose. wore a simple black dress. Nothing flashy, nothing that would draw attention. I wanted to blend in. I wanted to be invisible. One last time. Derek was already holding court at the center table, wine glass in one hand, phone in the other, showing the wire transfer confirmation to anyone who would look. 2 million, he kept saying. Can you believe it? Some fund just reached out and believed in me. The irony was almost too much. He was bragging about being believed in, while the person who actually wrote the check sat 3 seats away, invisible as always. Dad was beaming. That look on his face I'd wanted my whole life. Pride, admiration, love, all directed at Derek. Mom was crying with pride, dabbing at her eyes with a cloth napkin, telling everyone who would listen what a wonderful son she had. Everyone was congratulating the golden son. Again, still, always, I sat down next to Grandma. She was the only person in my family who'd ever treated me like I mattered. When I was a kid, she used to save me cookies from Sunday dinner, hide them in her purse so Derek wouldn't eat them all, slip them to me when no one was looking. For my smart girl, she'd whisper. When I left to start my company, she was the only one who called. I'm proud of you, she said. Whatever happens, I'm proud of you. She sent me a card when I launched Prescient Systems. A real card, handwritten, with a $20 bill inside. The only family member who acknowledged what I'd built. You look like you're planning something, she whispered now. Maybe. Something good? Depends on your definition of good. She studied my face. Those sharp eyes that age hadn't dimmed. Good, she said. This family needs some shaking up. I squeezed her hand. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, sweetheart. Now go show them what you're made of. Derek started his speech after the main course, standing at the head of the table, wine glass raised, that confident smile, that easy charm. I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate Grandma, 85 years, and still sharper than most of us. Polite laughter, but I also want to share some news that I think will make her proud. He talked about the company, about Dad's legacy, about the challenges they'd faced, about how he'd worked tirelessly to find a solution, about the investor who believed in him. $2 million, he said. That's how much faith this fund has in our future. In my leadership, he looked around the room, soaking in the admiration. Then his eyes found me, and his expression changed. Harder? Koller? Unlike my sister, I actually built something real. The room laughed. That nervous, uncomfortable laughter. The kind people do when they don't know how to react. A few people glanced at me. Pitying looks. The poor unmarried daughter who'd walked away from the family, who'd failed at her little startup fantasy, who'd come crawling back because she had nowhere else to go. Derek continued. This investor saw my vision, believed in what I could do. $2 million. That's the kind of validation that matters. Who is it? Uncle Robert asked. Uncle Robert had always been the skeptic, the one who asked uncomfortable questions at family gatherings. What? The investor. Who's behind the fund? What's their track record? Dag ved his hent. Dismissive. Pacific Ridge Capital, a private fund out of Seattle. Very exclusive. Very selective. Never heard of them? That's the point. They're anonymous. They prefer to stay out of the spotlight. Convenient, I said quietly. Too quietly for most people to hear, but not Derek. His head snapped toward me. Excuse me? I said it's convenient, that they're anonymous. No way to verify their track record. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm just curious. I stood up, slowly, calmly. Every eye in the room turned to me. This was it. 3 years of silence. 3 years of invisibility. All leading to this moment. Did you do any due diligence on this fund, Derek? Look into who was behind it. Check their history? They came highly recommended. By whom? By people, business people. People in the industry. Names? Derek's face was reddening, that angry flush he got when he was cornered. When he was caught, I don't have to justify myself to you. You walked away from this family. You don't get to question me. Actually, I do. I reached into my purse, pulled out a folder, a simple manila folder. Nothing special, but inside was everything. Because I'm Pacific Ridge Capital, the room went absolutely silent. Not the uncomfortable silence from before. Something deeper, something frozen. Derek laughed, that nervous, confused laugh people do when reality stops making sense. That's not funny. It's not meant to be. I walked toward him, heels clicking on the hardwood floor, each step deliberate, each step measured. I laid the folder in front of him. These are the incorporation documents for Pacific Ridge Capital. My signature is on page 3. My attorney can verify everything. Derek opened the folder. His hands were shaking. He flipped through the pages. His lips moved as he read. His face went from red to white. This can't be. It can. And it is. I turned to my father. He was staring at me like he'd never seen me before, like I was a stranger who'd wandered into his family dinner. Dad, you always said the company should go to Derek. Well, Derek just sold 51% of it to your daughter. Dad's face went completely pale, the color draining like someone had pulled a plug. Mom's wine glass slipped from her fingers, crashed onto the table, red wine spreading across the white tablecloth like blood. You tricked him, Dad finally said. His voice was hoarse, broken. I made a legitimate business offer. He accepted without doing any research, without reading the contract, without consulting anyone. I looked at Derek. That's not a trick. That's due diligence, or the lack of it. You didn't even Google the name of the fund investing in you. Why? Derek's voice cracked. Why would you do this? I thought about all the reasons. The years of being invisible, the graduation party cut short, the bicycle while he got a car, the office job while he got management, the card while Derek got $50,000, the silence while I built an empire. But what I said was simpler. Because you told 35 people I never built anything real, I wanted to show you what I built. I reached into my purse again, pulled out my phone, opened the Prescient Systems website, showed him the press release about our Series B funding, $20 million, showed him my photo on the leadership page, founder and CEO, showed him the Forbes article with my face on the cover. This is my company, I said. 42 employees, 3.6 million in revenue, 20 million in investment. I built this from nothing. While you were running Dad's company into the ground, Derek stared at the phone, at the numbers, at the evidence of everything he'd dismissed. This whole thing was revenge, he said. This was just about hurting me. No, I put the phone down. Revenge would be firing you, selling the company to a competitor, watching you and Dad lose everything. I paused. I'm not doing that. What? I'm not here to destroy Dad's company. I'm here to save it. I turned to face the room, all 35 relatives staring at me. Some in shock, some in awe, some in confusion. Grandma in the corner, smiling that knowing smile. Derek made bad decisions because no one taught him better. He was handed everything, never had to earn it. That's not entirely his fault. I looked at my parents, Mom still crying. Dos del pole. It's yours. You created a son who doesn't know how to fail, who doesn't know how to work, who doesn't know how to lead, because you never let him learn. I walked back toward my seat. I'm going to restructure the company, bring in real management, fix the problems Derek created, and eventually I'll sell my stake back to the family at a fair price. Why? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. Why would you do that? After everything, because you're still my family. Even when you treated me like I wasn't. I sat back down next to Grandma. She took my hand, squeezed it tight. That's my girl, she whispered. Your grandfather would be so proud. The rest of the dinner was silent. Derek left early. Couldn't look at me. Couldn't look at anyone. Just grabbed his jacket and walked out. My parents left too. Mom hugged me before she went. Stiff. Uncertain. But something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Something like respect. Dad couldn't even look at me. Just walked past like I wasn't there. Some things take longer to change. But the rest of the family, something shifted. Uncle Robert came over after my parents left. I always thought they underestimated you, he said. I should have said something years ago. I'm sorry I didn't. Aunt Clara hugged me. Tight. Real. I wish I'd reached out sooner. I'm sorry. Cousin after cousin. Aunt after uncle. People I'd felt invisible around my entire life. Coming up to me, talking to me, seeing me. Finally, the restructuring took 8 months. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than building my own company. Harder than those first years of ramen and rejection. Because this time, I wasn't just building something. I was fixing something that was broken in ways I couldn't have imagined. The first week, I did a complete audit. Went through every document, every contract, every financial record. What I found was worse than Derek had admitted. The company wasn't just struggling. It was dying. 3 major clients had already left. 2 more were threatening to leave. Payroll was 2 weeks behind. Vendors were threatening lawsuits. The equipment was outdated. The processes were inefficient. Morale was at rock bottom. 40 employees were about to lose their jobs. 40 families were about to lose their income. Because my brother had been too proud to ask for help sooner. Because my father had been too blind to see what was happening. Because my family had been so focused on me being invisible, they couldn't see the real disaster right in front of them. Derek fought every decision at first. Every single one. I proposed cutting expenses. He accused me of trying to destroy the company. I proposed renegotiating with vendors. He said I was embarrassing him. I proposed bringing in outside consultants. He called it a betrayal of everything Dad had built. We had screaming matches in the conference room. Doors slammed so hard the walls shook. Emails that were more like weapons than communication. I thought about walking away a dozen times. Just selling my stake to the highest bidder, letting the chips fall where they may. But then I'd think about Gerald, the machinist who'd helped me test my tooling solution all those years ago. He was still there, still working, still counting on a paycheck, and he had a wife with cancer and 3 kids in school. I thought about Maria in accounting. Single mom, 2 jobs, barely keeping her head above water. I thought about James in shipping. Vietnam veteran. This job was the only thing keeping him stable. 40 employees, 40 stories, 40 reasons to keep fighting. Then something happened at month 3. I'd called a meeting with Derek to go over the real financials, not the ones he'd been showing investors, not the ones he'd been hiding from Dad. The real numbers. We sat across from each other in the conference room. Same conference room where Dad had given him credit for my work. Same conference room where I'd been invisible for years. I spread the documents across the table. This is what we owe, I said. This is what we owe. These are the clients we've lost. This is our cash runway. 37 days. He stared at the numbers. Really stared for the first time. I watched his face change. The arrogance draining away. The excuses dying in his throat. This can't be right, he whispered. It's right. But I was doing everything Dad taught me. I was following his playbook. Dad's playbook was from 1995. The world changed. You didn't change with it. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. He was quiet for a long time. The clock ticked on the wall. Somewhere outside, a car honked. Normal sounds. Normal world. While inside this room, Derek's entire self-image was crumbling. I did this, he finally said. It wasn't a question. Yes, I almost destroyed everything Dad built. Yes, Gerald, Maria, James, they were going to lose their jobs. Because of me. Yes. And you're trying to save it. Even after everything I said, you could have let it die. Nobody would have blamed you. I know. Why didn't you? I thought about the answer for a long time. Because I'm not you, Derek. I don't destroy things. I build them. He put his head in his hands. And for the first time in my life, I saw my brother cry. Not the fake tears he'd used to get out of trouble as a kid. Real tears. The tears of a man realizing he'd wasted every advantage he'd ever been given. When he looked up, something had changed. Something fundamental. Teach me, he said. I blinked. What? Teach me. Show me what you see. I don't want to be the person who almost destroyed 40 families. I want to be someone who actually deserves to lead. It could have been manipulation, another angle, another way to undermine me. But it wasn't. I could see it in his eyes. For the first time in his life, Derek was humble. For the first time in his life, he was willing to learn. For the first time in his life, he was ready to become the man everyone assumed. I fired him. Not immediately. I gave him 30 days to prove he could change. 30 days to show me he understood what he'd done. 30 days to demonstrate any capacity for humility. He failed. Every single day. At the first board meeting, he showed up 20 minutes late. Traffic, he muttered. Then spent the entire meeting on his phone. I assigned him to shadow Gerald on the production floor. Learn the machines. Understand the actual work. He lasted 4 hours before complaining that his back hurt, that the noise gave him a headache, that this was beneath him. I gave him access to the training programs, leadership courses, financial management seminars, manufacturing best practices workshops. He didn't attend a single one. I already know this stuff, he said. I went to business school, the same business school where he graduated with a 2, tiga jipa. By week 2, he was telling employees I'd stolen the company, spreading rumors that I'd manipulated the paperwork, that the investment was fraudulent, that he was going to sue. By week 3, he'd contacted 3 of our remaining clients, told them to pull their contracts before I ran everything into the ground. 2 of them called me directly, asked if it was true. I showed them the real financials, the ones Derek had hidden for years. They stayed, but the damage was done. By week 4, Derek walked into my office with a lawyer, demanded I return his shares, threatened to take me to court, claimed I'd committed fraud, securities violations, elder abuse against our father. His lawyer was expensive. Armani suit. Gold watch? The kind of lawyer who bills $500 an hour? I'd done my homework on this firm. They had a reputation for aggressive tactics. They'd won some high-profile cases, but they'd also been sanctioned twice for ethics violations. I let him finish his threats. Then I pulled out my own folder. This is every email you sent to clients bad-mouthing me. I laid out the printed pages. This is the recording of you telling vendors to stop supplying us. I set down the USB drive. This is the testimony from 3 employees about your harassment. I added the signed statements. And this is the evidence that you've been embezzling from the company. His face went white. What are you talking about? I never. $47,000 over 3 years. Personal expenses charged to the company. Trips to Vegas billed as client entertainment. A boat rental charged as equipment testing. Your girlfriend's jewelry listed as employee appreciation gifts. His lawyer started gathering papers. I need to confer with my client. You do that. I stood up. And while you're conferring, let him know that I'm offering him a choice. Resign quietly, and I won't press charges. Or fight me, and I'll bury him. Derek's voice cracked. You wouldn't. I'm your brother. You were my brother. I walked to the door. You have until Friday to decide. He resigned on Thursday. No severance. No reference. No golden parachute. Just a box of personal items and a security escort to the parking lot. The employees watched him go. Nobody said goodbye. Gerald came to my office that afternoon, knocked on the door, stood there with his cap in his hands. "I wanted to thank you," he said, "for saving our jobs, for finally dealing with him." "You don't have to thank me. I want to. We all do. That man made our lives miserable for years. Screaming at people, taking credit for our work, blaming us for his mistakes." He shook his head. "We were afraid to say anything. He was the boss's son." "Not anymore." "No, not anymore." By year 2, the company was thriving. Not just surviving, dominating. We'd added 15 new clients, updated every piece of equipment, hired back everyone we'd had to let go, plus 30 more. Revenue tripled. The company was worth $12 million, 6 times what Derek had almost destroyed. And then I did something nobody expected. I sold it. Not to my parents. Not to Derek. Not to some outside investor. I sold it to the employees. Structured an ESOP employee stock ownership plan. Gerald became a part owner of the company he'd built with his hands. Maria in accounting, James in shipping, all 43 of them. Owners now. My parents got nothing. "You can't do this," Dad said when I told him. We were sitting in my office, the office that used to be his. The nameplate on the door said Jessica Cho, CEO. I already did it, but it's the family business. It should stay in the family. It is staying in family. The family that actually worked here. The family that showed up every day and built something real, not the family that took everything for granted. His face went red. "After everything we did for you." "What did you do for me, Dad?" I stood up. "You paid for my education?" "No, I got scholarships." "You gave me a fair job?" "No, I answered phones." "You read a single report I wrote?" "No, I found all 12 unread." "You acknowledged a single achievement?" "No, you gave Derek the credit." "You even noticed when I left?" "No, you didn't call for 2 years." I walked to the window. "You gave Derek everything. He almost destroyed it. You gave me nothing, and I saved it. So don't tell me what you did for me. You did nothing." He didn't respond. There was no response. Mom cried. She always cried. But this time, I didn't comfort her. "You chose Derek," I said. "Every time. For 30 years. You chose him. Now you get to live with what that cost you." They left without saying goodbye. I watched them walk to their car. An older Honda now. They'd had to sell the Mercedes. Derek had borrowed against it without telling them. They'd lost most of their savings covering his debts, his investments that turned out to be gambling losses, his business trips that were resort stays with women who weren't his wife. They'd mortgaged their house to cover his mistakes. Now they lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood they used to look down on. Derek? He's working at a car dealership now. Sales. Not management, just sales. Commission only. I saw him last month. Didn't recognize him at first. 20 pounds heavier. Hair thinning. That confident smile gone. He was trying to sell a minivan to a young couple. They walked away. He saw me watching from across the lot. Our eyes met. I expected anger. Hatred. Blame. What I saw was worse. Nothing. Just emptiness. He looked away first. I didn't feel bad. He brought this on himself. Every decision, every lie, every theft, every betrayal. He chose this. I just made sure there were consequences. I was 35 years old. I had a company worth $50 million. Investors who believed in me, employees who respected me, a future I built with my own hands. And I had justice, not revenge. Justice. The brother who called me worthless was now worthless himself. The parents who made me invisible were now invisible themselves. The family that erased me had been erased from the company. Everything they'd done to me came back to them. Not because I'm cruel, because that's how the world works. Eventually, the truth comes out. Eventually, the ledger balances. Eventually, people get what they deserve. So that's my story. The brother who bragged about his investor at grandma's birthday dinner, the sister who was the investor, the $2 million that changed everything, not because of the money. The money was never the point. Because of what it proved. You don't have to wait for people to see your value. You can force them to see it. You can build something so big, so undeniable, so powerful, that they choke on their own words, that they drown in their own failures, that they wake up every day knowing they were wrong about you. And if you're out there right now feeling invisible, feeling overlooked, feeling like no matter how hard you work, no one notices, I see you. I know what it's like. I know how much it hurts. I know how easy it would be to give up. But I promise you this, your moment is coming. You might have to build it yourself. You might have to be your own investor, your own champion, your own weapon. You might have to work harder than anyone around you. Struggle more. Sacrifice more. Believe in yourself when no one else will. But when your moment comes, you won't show mercy. You won't offer second chances. You won't lift them up after they pushed you down. You'll let them fall. And you'll watch. Because the best revenge isn't becoming the bigger person. The best revenge is winning. Completely, absolutely, devastatingly. It's walking into a room where everyone dismissed you, watching their faces crumble when they realize who you really are. It's standing over the wreckage of everything they built, knowing you're the one who brought it down. It's living your best life while they live with their worst mistakes. That's real power. That's real justice. That's the story I want you to tell. Now go build something real. And when you're done building, burn theirs to the ground.